Hi, it's Professor Sills again, and this is now the Chapter 6 review. So, as I look at the questions that I asked you to take a look at, the first one, number 10, says, explain why cumulus clouds are conspicuously absent over a cool water surface. Now, understand this. Cumulus clouds, and let me just go to Google and let's bring something up. Cumulus clouds, and this would be a nice picture. So when we look at a cumulus cloud, this cloud forms the way it does because of heating on the ground forcing air to rise. As air begins to rise, and that's really the case with any cloud, it's got to form with rising air. It's all a matter of whether it's rapidly rising or very gradually rising. Now, whether it's rapidly rising or gradually rising, we don't feel it. We don't feel the air rising around us. But nevertheless, it is, and this is part of what we call convection. Convection is initiated by the sun beating down on the earth, heating the ground, heating the air then above the ground, which warms, becomes buoyant, and rises. When the air rises, it cools. And when it cools, as we said before, it will reach its condensation point, dew point temperature, whatever you want to call it. And at that point, that's when water vapor will turn into water droplets, or condensed water vapor, which is water droplets. So what you're looking at in the photograph here are condensed water droplets in the sky. What do we call them? A cloud. Notice that the cloud has, all of these clouds here seem to have roughly the same base. I'll guess maybe about 4,000 feet above the ground. What that means is air has been rising for about 4,000 feet, at which point the air becomes cold enough, and with the moisture in it, the water vapor is forced to condense, and that's the condensation level. So hence that's the base of the clouds. Now, if the clouds are rising rapidly, they may build further vertically into the atmosphere, and the extreme case, the 800-pound gorilla case, if you will, is the cumulonimbus cloud. Now, the original question was, why are these clouds conspicuously absent from cool water surface? Well, let's think about it. If in order for these clouds to form, you need to warm the air near the ground and cause the air to begin rising, then you have to have ground which is going to warm up. Water doesn't warm up all that much. If you've ever been to the ocean in the summer, you know that the sand will warm up rapidly and radically during the course of the day, but the water doesn't change much. So the water, which stays cool, fails to warm the air above it, and if it fails to warm the air above it, the air above it, which is not all that warm, will not become buoyant and will not begin to rise, hence the lack of clouds. You can, however, find areas where there's warm water, and you will see that. Here's a classic example down here near Cuba, certainly in the Gulf of Mexico, plenty of activity, but then when you get up here, these clouds are associated with a cyclone. This to me is a classic indicator of a cyclone or cyclonic pattern. So that's something that we can look at again when we talk a little bit more about cyclones. Okay, number 11. Why are cumulus clouds frequently observed during the afternoon rather than at night? Well, again, same idea. If you're heating the ground in the afternoon, that's when the cumulus clouds are going to form. At night, there's no heating, so you don't get that kind of diurnal activity, that kind of daily activity. All right, number 12. An inversion. Why would it represent a stable atmosphere? Well, let's think about this. In an inversion, normally air cools as you go higher. In an inversion, you have cold air at the bottom and warm air above. Well, if you have cold air here, the cold air is not going to have a tendency to rise. It's not going to be as buoyant as the warm air above. Therefore, the net result will be the cold air will sit where it is, the warm air will sit on top of it, and what you'll end up with is a very stable atmosphere. Now, that's very often an atmosphere where there's fog on the ground or something like that, but that's nevertheless not going to produce rain or snow or severe weather for you at all.
So
All right.
Able to travel.